This is the real story of a paralyzed millionaire whose life takes an unexpected turn when an ex-convict becomes his caregiver, leading to an extraordinary bond. But is their connection truly genuine or just a matter of money? Late one night in Paris, Driss is driving his boss, Philippe, through the city. Waiting in traffic gets boring, so Driss decides to break the speed limit, weaving through cars without caring about the traffic signs. This gets the attention of the police, and Driss makes a bet for 100 euros that he can lose them. But after going under a bridge, the police catch up and surround the car. Driss isn't worried and makes another bet for 200 euros that he can convince the cops to give them an escort. When the police make him get out of the car, Driss starts acting, pretending to be offended and telling them Philippe is sick and needs to get to the hospital. The police check the car and see a wheelchair in the back. When they look at Philippe, they see him convulsing, which is also part of the act. Believing it's an emergency, the police forgive Driss and offer to escort them to the hospital. To celebrate winning the bet, Driss plays September by Earth, Wind, Fire, and when they reach their destination, he shares a smoke with Philippe after the police leave. Driss promises to handle things and drives away just before the hospital staff can find them. This unusual friendship started months before. Philippe and his assistant, Magali, were interviewing candidates to find a new caregiver for him. The interviews were not going well because the applicants gave dull or awkward answers. Suddenly, Driss barges in, not waiting for his turn. He's only there to get a signature to prove he applied, so he can receive unemployment benefits. He's blunt and a bit rude, even flirting with Magali, but Philippe finds him amusing and asks him to come back the next day for the signed papers. Driss sees his brother Adama getting out of a shady car. When Adama comes into the apartment, he claims he was at school, grabs his bag, and leaves again, making Driss suspicious. That night, when their mom arrives, Driss gives her a stolen Fabergé and tells her he's been on vacation. She isn't pleased to see him because he disappeared for 6 months without a word and then showed up as if nothing happened. She's tired of his behavior, and since she has other kids to take care of, she kicks him out of the house. Driss spends the night smoking and snacking with friends. The next day, he goes to Philippe's house to collect his papers. The housekeeper, Yvonne, shows him around and explains Philippe's routine. She even shows Driss the room he would get, complete with his own bathroom. Driss can't help but admire the bathtub before Yvonne takes him to see Philippe. Philippe offers him the signed paper but also a job, giving him a 1-month trial period. Driss accepts, and Philippe bets he won't last 2 weeks. Driss moves into the house and begins learning how to care for Philippe. He learns how to keep Philippe's legs stimulated, move him into his wheelchair, and help him shower and change clothes. Things get uncomfortable when Driss finds out he'll also have to put stockings on Philippe and even clean him after using the bathroom. Although Driss complains, he eventually accepts it as part of the job. Later that evening, while Driss is enjoying a snack on the roof, Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and her boyfriend, Bastien, Driss refuses to share his beer and kicks them out. Driss quickly gets used to his new job with Philippe, though he makes some mistakes at first, like handing Philippe a phone instead of putting it to his ear, or forgetting the baby monitor while taking a bath. He learns from them. He also organizes Philippe's mail, opening most of it but leaving the private ones alone. One day, he finds a flyer for female escorts and, instead of throwing it away like Philippe said, he creates a folder just for them. One morning, Yvonne scolds Driss for being late and notices some dangerous weapons in his bag, but she doesn't say anything for now. Driss is supposed to drive Philippe that day, and he refuses to put Philippe in the back of a van, treating him like cargo. Instead, he takes him in a fancy car that doesn't get much use. At first, Philippe says they should be practical, but he soon enjoys the idea of a fast, exciting ride, though Yvonne isn't happy about it. As they try to leave the building, they find a neighbor blocking the exit. Ignoring the no parking sign, the neighbor refuses to move. Driss wastes no time and grabs the man by his shirt, threatening him until he moves the car. Philippe is impressed, but once again Yvonne disapproves. They visit a museum where Philippe wants to buy an expensive piece of art, which Driss doesn't like because it's just a red blotch on a canvas. Later, Philippe meets a relative who worries about Driss. They found out he has a criminal record and can be violent, but Philippe doesn't care. He likes Driss because he doesn't pity him and knows how to have fun. Driss has dinner with Yvonne in the kitchen while they overhear Philippe dictating a letter to Magali through the baby monitor. Yvonne turns off the monitor, explaining that Philippe is actually writing to a woman named Eleanor. Philippe and Eleanor have never met, they only exchange letters, and that's why he didn't let Driss open those particular letters. Later that night, Driss hears strange noises from the baby monitor. Philippe is struggling to breathe. Though Driss tries to ignore it at first, he ends up helping Philippe, calming him down with soothing words and a cool cloth. After Philippe falls asleep, he wakes up again, saying he needs some fresh air. Driss doesn't hesitate this time and takes Philippe out in his wheelchair for a night stroll by the river. This is Philippe's first time seeing Paris at night in a long time. Feeling more relaxed, Philippe tells Driss that his medicine doesn't always work and that he often suffers from phantom pain. When the pain starts to return, Driss offers him a joint. Philippe is hesitant but ends up enjoying it. They then go to a restaurant, laughing and sharing a meal. Philippe opens up more about his life, revealing that he met his wife when they were students. After getting married, she suffered 5 miscarriages and was diagnosed with a terminal illness, which led them to adopt Elisa. Philippe also loved extreme sports and speed, which is how he ended up paralyzed after a paragliding accident. Despite his injuries, Philippe believes his real handicap isn't the wheelchair, but living without his wife. And after joking around for a bit longer, Philippe realizes that Driss has passed his 1-month trial, meaning he's officially hired now. However, Driss needs to return the Fabergé egg he stole since it was a gift from Philippe's wife, but she used to give him one every year, and he has 25 eggs in total, matching their years together. The next day, Driss meets his sister, Mina, after school. She's upset because he hasn't been answering her messages except to ask about the egg. She also mentions that the police have been calling the house. Afterward, Driss visits his brother Adama, who admits he got caught with 30 grams of drugs. Driss offers to take him out for lunch, but Adama refuses and gets into a suspicious car again. Later, Driss is present when Philippe dictates a letter to Eleanor, with Magali typing it. Driss finds the fancy words boring and suggests Philippe should be more straightforward. He's shocked to learn Philippe has been writing to her for 6 months without exchanging pictures. When Driss finds Eleanor's phone number in one of the letters, he takes it as a sign and calls her. Philippe has no choice but to speak to her. The conversation goes so well that Philippe starts talking to her regularly, even during moments like when he and Driss attend the opera, where Driss can't help but laugh at the costumes. The next day, Driss convinces Philippe to send a photo of himself in his wheelchair to Eleanor. But later, Philippe secretly asks Yvonne to change the photo to one from before his accident. She quickly hides the new picture just before Driss comes in, complaining about Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and saying she needs to be disciplined. Philippe agrees to talk to her, but he's surprised to learn Driss has taken up painting. As time passes, Philippe and Driss' friendship deepens. Driss takes Philippe outside to play in the snow and even brings him along when he goes jogging. Philippe buys Driss his first suit and even scolds his daughter, while Driss listens in through a baby monitor. When Driss finishes his first painting, he shows it to Magali. Philippe likes the painting and promises to try to sell it. The two friends continue to bond, sharing fun times like driving a faster car. When Philippe's birthday comes around, he isn't looking forward to it. Every year, he pretends to be surprised at the party and has to meet relatives who only show up to make sure he's still alive. He tells Driss it'll be boring. While the guests enjoy live classical music, Driss looks for Elisa and finds her crying in her room. She's upset because she took some of Yvonne's pills, hoping they'd kill her, but they won't. She's sad because Bastien broke up with her and called her names. Driss agrees to talk to Bastien, but only if Elisa pays him. Meanwhile, Philippe shows Driss painting to one of his relatives and manages to sell it for 11,000 euros. Driss goes back to the party and chats with Yvonne, who reveals that Magali is in a rocky relationship with someone named Fred, giving Driss hope. As the party winds down, Philippe introduces Driss to some famous classical music pieces, but Driss can't help but joke around. When the band finishes, Driss plays Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Windfire on his iPod and starts dancing. He's a great dancer and soon gets everyone else on the dance floor, which Philippe enjoys watching. Later, while putting Philippe to bed, Driss opens Eleanor's latest letter. She sent a photo of herself, revealing that she's quite pretty, and says she wants to meet up in Paris next week. On the day of the big date, Yvonne and Driss help Philippe try on many outfits until they find the perfect one. Since Yvonne will be the one taking Philippe to his date, Driss uses his day off to visit Bastien. He threatens Bastien, forcing him to apologize to Eliza, bring her croissants daily, and fix his hair. Afterward, Driss visits his mother but only watches her from a distance. At the restaurant, Yvonne and Philippe wait for Eleanor, who is running late. After an hour of waiting, Philippe loses hope, calls Driss to come pick him up, and leaves. As he departs, Eleanor arrives, but Philippe doesn't notice her. Later that night, Philippe takes Driss on his private plane and gifts him the money from selling the painting. Driss is overjoyed. The next morning, they arrive in the countryside and Philippe decides to go paragliding, taking Driss along. Though Driss is terrified at first, he eventually enjoys the experience. And when they return home, Driss finds his brother Adama waiting for him. Driss scolds Adama for the scars on his face, but Adama refuses to explain what's going on in his life. Driss makes him wait in his room while he calls Mina to reassure her. He then helps Philippe to bed, though Philippe isn't ready to sleep yet. Philippe asks Driss about his family, and after some reluctance, Driss opens up. He reveals that Adama isn't really his brother, and his parents are actually his aunt and uncle, who raised him when they couldn't have children. Driss' real name is Bakary Bassari, but he was given the name Idris, which became Driss when he came to live with them. Philippe tells Driss that Adama needs discipline and suggests Driss should focus on his family instead of spending his life caring for an old man. The next morning, Driss packs his things and prepares to leave. Before he goes, Bastien arrives with a croissant and a much improved hairstyle. Driss also says goodbye to Magali. Before leaving, Driss returns the baby monitor to Yvonne and playfully teases her about lying to him about Magali. In return, Yvonne hands him back the escort file he had worked on, but he's disappointed to find the picture he chose hidden inside. Driss throws away the file, but keeps the picture for himself. Outside, Driss finds a car blocking the entrance again. Even though he doesn't work there anymore, he asks the driver to move, saying it's a matter of principle. Later, Driss and Adama pick up their mother from the train station. Meanwhile, at Philippe's house, he has dinner with his new caretaker, who is dull and uninspiring. Philippe's the table without eating, and since Yvonne is on a date with the gardener, no one is around to stop him. As time passes, Driss returns to his old life, leaving Felipe to his new reality. He reconnects with his old friends and warns the men in the suspicious car to leave Adama alone. Later, he attends a job interview for a position he's not really qualified for, but he impresses the employer by calling himself pragmatic and using the art knowledge he gained from working with Felipe. This lands him a job as a driver. Meanwhile, Felipe isn't happy with his new caregiver and is often in a bad mood. One night, when Felipe refuses anyone's help for his phantom pain, Yvonne calls Driss to assist him, and this leads to the moment we saw at the beginning, with the police chasing them and then taking them to the hospital. After the incident, Driss drives Felipe to the coast, where the sight of the ocean calms him. Sometime later, Driss helps Felipe trim his beard before taking him to a restaurant, but Driss doesn't stay because someone else is meeting Felipe for lunch. Before leaving, Driss wishes him luck, returns a valuable egg, and leaves. Felipe feels nervous about being alone until he sees his lunch date Eleanor, who is happy to see him and isn't bothered by his wheelchair. In real life, Count Felipe Pazo di Borgo now lives in Morocco, has remarried, and has 2 daughters. The real Driss, named Abdel Yasmin Salou, runs his own business and has a wife and 3 children. The two remain close friends to this day. Subscribe for popcorn. We are racing towards 500 subscribers.